Fantasy Football Dictionary defines upside as the existence of potential favorable outcomes that would result in a player outperforming his ADP, his average draft position, and expectation. What's happening, baby? It's your boy, Indo is my Nindo, also known as Dallas Clark, and I'm your host, as always, of the Huddle Chat Sports Fantasy Football Huddle. And today we're tackling 5 players who have league-winning upside, and it makes these players must-draft players. Especially if you find yourself outside of those first couple of picks and you don't have the ability to pick one of those godlike fantasy football players like Jonathan Taylor or Justin Jefferson, one of those obvious league-winning players. These 5 players they have potential league-winning upside, and you'll be able to grab them late in rounds, later in your draft, and potentially go ahead and definitely outperform that expectation and that average draft position. Before we get started, as always, I'd like to invite you, if you do, no pressure if you don't, to smoke them if you got them. Let's get everything started, and let's get right into the news. Now, the first player that I want to talk about that's got that league-winning upside potential is going to be a player who disappointed last season. When you first hear about this person's name, even me, I had him on my teams. And you think, Stephon Diggs had a bad year last year. But did he really? He finished as wide receiver 7 in fantasy football last year. He didn't have a bad year by any standpoint at all. The problem with impatient fantasy football owners like myself is he started extremely slow and was disappointing if you were expecting what he did in 2020 to happen last season. However, if you look at what he left on the table, you can argue to say Stephon Diggs was very unlucky last year. He commanded the most end zone targets of any player in the NFL by at least 5 targets. He had 6 more targets in the end zone than the next closest wide receiver in the NFL last season. At the end of the day, Stephon Diggs left a lot of fantasy production on the table, and he's in a very explosive offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and you can't expect him to have a repeat of last season. Stephon Diggs is going typically very high in the top 15 of wide receivers, so he's not an outstanding player that's going to shock you when he comes out and gives you that league-winning potential, because he is a definite league winner this year. You also look at the fact that he just signed a 4-year contract extension back in April. That gives him a 40% increase on his salary, so he's comfortable, he's happy. Josh Allen in that Buffalo Bills offense provides him an extremely high floor, and his athleticism and his playmaking ability, and the fact that Stephon Diggs is beating man coverage, zone coverage, and press coverage at a top 5% rate of all time makes you see that he has an extremely high ceiling. And I forgot to mention that Stephon Diggs is still right smack dab in the middle of his prime. He's 28 years old. There's no slowing down in the future at all coming for this man. I'm seeing Stephon Diggs as one of those players that could seriously win you a league this year. Now, another player that's going to be able to provide you that league-winning upside is going to be from my favorite position, that running back position. You already know how I feel about that running back position in fantasy football. It's a gold mine. Those top 10 running backs, those obvious starters at RB1, those are obvious, like I said. But what you're going to be looking at is after running back 10, the downfall of those average points per game for a running back is so significant. It makes you start going after wide receivers in those rounds. So in those rounds, when those people that went running back heavy in your draft stole all the good running backs and are now turning their table and turning the tide towards the pass catching ability of those wide receivers and tight ends in the draft, now you can go ahead and steal some of these late round running backs off the board. First one off my board is going to be Travis Etienne coming out of Jacksonville. Right now, running back 17, average draft position is at 42. That's a 4th round running back right there, ladies and gentlemen. And he's one of 6 people in the entire NFL history to get a 99 elite grade from Next Gen Stats. Last season, he did suffer a really bad injury that definitely halted his start in the NFL. He is also one of 12 players to ever earn even a 90+ grade from Next Gen Stats. In 2020, he had the most college yards per route run of all time in the NCAA. He also led the NCAA in broken tackles through over that span of 2019 and 2020, and the only running back who did better than that was Christian McCaffrey in the NCAA history. Now, he's looking completely healthy so far in camp from everything that we've been able to see, and he has been called by Jacksonville players, by Jacksonville staff, Jacksonville's version of Deebo Samuel, a weapon that can play at any spot on the field and can really cause damage to a defense. Travis Etienne is one of those players you need to scoop up right now when you're going into your NFL drafts, into your mock drafts, and into your regular fantasy draft, which is right around the corner, and he can provide you that league-winning potential. Now, moving back to one of the pass catchers that's going to provide you that league-winning potential, I'm looking at Big Mike Williams coming from the Los Angeles Chargers. He had 40 end zone targets since 2019 and has converted 8 of those into touchdowns. 5 of those touchdowns coming just last season. Last year, he finished with the 6th most end zone targets among wide receivers, and he's primed to score double-digit touchdowns easily in that Los Angeles Chargers explosive offense. You look at the fact that he's able to repeat easily or outdo his wide receiver 12 standpoint from last year. You also look at nothing has changed at all in Mike Williams' situation, except for the fact that Keenan Allen is now 1 year older. Keenan Allen is also coming off of his worst year. Keenan Allen is also coming off of the worst yards per route run output he's ever had since 2014. Keenan Allen's target share of 28% in 2020 also dropped last season to 22%. Keenan Allen is getting targeted less and less in that Chargers offense, and he's getting older and older. Things aren't getting better for Keenan Allen, but they are for Big Mike Williams. That man provides extremely high touchdown production and extremely great volume. You also look at the fact that Austin Eckler in Los Angeles last season scored 20 touchdowns, and that's very unlikely for him to repeat that touchdown production. But somebody has to score those touchdowns. Justin Herbert needs a favorite target, and Mike Williams is there. They have that rapport, and you look at Justin Herbert coming into yet another year. He's a veteran at this point. Mike Williams will catch you a championship this year if you add him to your roster. Now, moving back on into those running backs, we're going to be looking at my favorite rookie this season. And if you haven't seen my 3 most tantalizing rookie picks of 2022, make sure you check that out. I'll drop a link in the description. But Breece Hall from the New York Jets is my favorite rookie coming into this season. He's right now going at running back 19. Average draft position is going to be at 48. And just like Travis Etienne, he is one of 6 running backs to ever get that 99 elite grade from Next Gen Stats. The other 5 running backs, I've already mentioned Travis Etienne. You got Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Melvin Gordon, and Nick Chubb will be the other 4 running backs, all of which have hit top 3 respective numbers in fantasy football in years prior to that, or in years following that. You also look at the fact that a rookie running back has finished top 6 in 4 of the last 5 years and top 15 in 10 straight seasons. You're also looking at the fact that he is easily the favorite to continue that trend. Breece Hall is somebody I'm a person that likes to stay away from risk. I'm a risk aversion kind of guy. And so that means rookies, typically I kind of stay away from them. But when it's coming to Breece Hall, his athleticism, he is the 2nd most athletic running back to come into the NFL since 2006. You're looking at his athleticism. You're looking at the fact that Michael Carter is still in that system, but will most likely get reduced to just a rotational role with how Breece Hall is going to come out there and how explosive he's going to be. I'm telling you, Breece Hall is going to run you into the playoffs this season if you can grab him later on in your rounds. Now, the last player that I have that's going to be providing you that league-winning upside, he's a must-draft player. That's going to be DeAndre Swift coming from the Detroit Lions. DeAndre Swift, as a rookie, had the 4th highest fantasy points per touch of all time. Let me say that again. The 4th highest fantasy points per touch of all time as a rookie. The other 3 that were in front of him, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and David Johnson. You might have heard of those three gentlemen because all three of those running backs later on in their career went on to have top number one running back numbers in fantasy football by their fourth season in the NFL. Now, you're looking at the fact that DeAndre Swift was running back 8 in fantasy points per game last year. He was top 5 in target share, receiving yards, and targets. The offense around DeAndre Swift in Detroit just continues to get better. It continues to get more explosive, and they continue to give him more volume and more touchdown production. He has a potential for extremely high touchdown production in that new and explosive Detroit Lions offense. And I really like DeAndre Swift coming out of drafts. He's a later round running back that you can snag up. And like I said, with all the other running backs, he will run you into the playoffs. Now that's going to be my 5 must-draft players that provide you league-winning upside in 2022. Now, I'm here to remind you, Dallas Clark is here to say, don't be that guy. We're starting a new thing here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. You might have heard about it. It's called DBTG. Hashtag DBTG. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. Share with me your embarrassing, questionable, stupid fantasy football moments that you or another league member has ever had that has made you just absolutely insane and question your life as a fantasy football team owner. Like I said, it's going to be hashtag don't be that guy. I one time made a bet with my cousin to wear a dress in fantasy football. And I tried everything that I could to win that bet, including making a very questionable trade with my own mother. Something along the lines of Christian Michael, she would trade him to me for the week and I would trade him back. And I still ended up losing like the sucker that I am and ended up having to wear a dress. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be that guy. Don't make a bet. Don't write a check that your ass can't cash and come out and do it with honor. Don't make no underhanded shady trades. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. Of course, as always, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning into today's topics on the Fantasy Football Huddle presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Show. As always, I'm your host, Dallas Clark, also known as Indo as my Indo, and I'd like to remind you to never be outworked, never be out-hustled, and never be outperformed. Make sure you tune into some of the coming episodes that we got. Click on one of these 2 videos and check the description for links on some of my more recent videos. It's 2022. Fantasy football season is right around the corner, and we're coming out hot and ready like a Little Caesars pizza. Fantasy football information is coming at you on a weekly, almost daily basis at this point. So make sure you hit that subscription. Make sure you hit that like button, especially if you've made it this far. Help a brother out and share it out to your friends. If you know somebody that's struggling in fantasy football and needs that help, bring them on over to the Fantasy Football Huddle and we'll check them out. Hey, it's your boy Dallas Clark, and I'm the flip out of here. Y'all have a good one now. Peace.